Ma'am, I need you to step aside. This item violates Section 4, subsection C of the Willow Creek Homeowners Association bylaws. I stared at the TSA agent. Then I stared at the woman standing next to him, holding up my neck pillow like it was a murder weapon, her reading glasses perched on the end of her nose, a laminated binder tucked under one arm like a briefcase full of doom. We were not in Willow Creek. We were not anywhere near Willow Creek. We were in Terminal B of a regional airport, 400 miles from her jurisdiction, standing in a security line that stretched back almost to the parking garage, and Deborah Hensley, HOA president, self-appointed guardian of curb appeal, and apparently now a self-appointed guardian of airport security, was holding my inflatable travel pillow over her head like Simba being presented to the animal kingdom. This, she announced to no one and everyone, is clearly an unauthorized inflatable lawn ornament. I've seen these exact violations before. Round, bulbous, decorative in nature. It does not meet residential aesthetic standards. The TSA agent blinked. Ma'am, we're at an airport. I am aware of where I am, Deborah said, not missing a beat. But rules are rules. The entire line behind us had gone silent, the way a crowd does right before something either becomes hilarious or becomes a viral video. Judging by the number of phones already rising into the air like a synchronized swim team, it was going to be both. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, this is the place where I tell you stories that sound too ridiculous to be true, except they are, because apparently I have the specific bad luck of attracting the most chaotic HOA presidents in America. Today's story involves an airport, a travel pillow, a woman who does not understand jurisdiction, and one of the most satisfying pieces of poetic justice I've ever witnessed in a public place. If you like stories where a rule-obsessed villain gets exactly what's coming to them, smash that subscribe button, because trust me, this one delivers. Let's rewind about 3 weeks, back to when this whole ridiculous saga actually started. Back when everything was peaceful. Back before I knew Deborah Hensley's name would somehow follow me all the way to airport security. I live in a neighborhood called Willow Creek Estates. It's the kind of place with manicured lawns, matching mailboxes, and a community Facebook group where people post photos of suspicious delivery trucks like they're reporting a bank robbery. Overall, though, it's quiet. Nice, even. I bought my house 2 years ago after saving for what felt like forever, and I loved it. Cul-de-sac. Big oak tree in the backyard. A porch swing I built myself over a weekend with a lot of enthusiasm and not quite enough carpentry skill. For the first year and a half, life there was genuinely peaceful. I worked from home doing freelance graphic design, took walks in the evening, waved at neighbors, brought in packages for the elderly couple next door when they traveled to see their grandkids. Standard suburban bliss. The HOA existed, sure, but it mostly handled things like trash can placement and lawn mowing schedules. Mildly annoying, sure, but background noise. Then Deborah Hensley became president. Before Deborah, the HOA was run by a retired schoolteacher named Carl who mostly cared about people not painting their houses neon colors and reminding everyone to trim their hedges before the 4th of July block party. Carl was reasonable. Carl understood that a stray inflatable pool float in someone's yard for one weekend was not a national emergency. Deborah was not Carl. Deborah ran on what she called a restoration platform, a campaign, and I am not exaggerating, that included an actual glossy trifold pamphlet with the header, Standards Matter. She won the election by a narrow margin after a surprisingly aggressive door-knocking campaign that involved measuring people's grass height with an actual ruler while they answered the door. I should have seen the writing on the wall. I did not. I was actually planning a trip. A real one, the kind I'd been saving vacation days for since the previous winter. A 10-day trip to visit my sister across the country, the first real vacation I'd taken in almost 2 years. I'd bought a new suitcase. I'd bought noise-canceling headphones. And, in a moment of what I thought was harmless, sensible self-care, I bought a travel pillow. One of those big, plush, inflatable neck pillows shaped like a rounded U, the kind you see people wearing in airport lounges looking vaguely like a very comfortable astronaut collar. I was excited. I had no idea that pillow was about to become the center of a homeowners association crusade that would somehow, impossibly, follow me all the way to a TSA checkpoint. Let me properly introduce you to Deborah Hensley, because you need to understand the full scope of what I was dealing with. Deborah is 58 years old, drives a white SUV with a "Standards Matter" bumper sticker she made herself, and owns, I want to stress this, a physical, laminated, tabbed binder containing what she calls the Willow Creek Compliance Manual. It is over 200 pages long. Nobody voted on most of it. Nobody remembers approving half of the language in it. But Deborah treats it like scripture. She has, at various points, cited neighbors for a garden gnome that was improperly weathered, a welcome mat that said, "Bless this mess," which she claimed encouraged negative energy zoning, a basketball hoop positioned at what she called an aggressive angle toward the street, wind chimes that were, in her words, auditorily excessive. She once measured the distance between a neighbor's trash cans and their front door with a tape measure while wearing a fanny pack that, I swear, contained a second, smaller notebook specifically for violations she hadn't officially logged yet. Deborah did not just enforce rules. Deborah collected rules. She hunted for reasons rules could apply to things that were never meant to be regulated at all. And about 3 weeks before my trip, she found her newest obsession, my front porch, and the inflatable pool flamingo my niece had left there after a weekend visit. That flamingo, bright pink, plastic, completely harmless, became Deborah's personal crusade. She left 3 notices on my door in 1 week. She emailed the HOA board, which is basically just her and 2 people who don't respond to emails, demanding immediate remediation of unauthorized inflatable yard displays. She even, and I have this on my porch camera, stood on my lawn for 11 full minutes taking photos of the flamingo from 6 different angles. I found it obnoxious but honestly kind of funny at the time. I deflated the flamingo, put it away, sent her a polite email saying it was resolved, and figured that was the end of it. I had absolutely no idea Deborah Hensley was about to be on the same flight as me. Here's the twist nobody saw coming, including me. Deborah's sister lives in the same city as mine. And wouldn't you know it, Deborah had booked a flight, the same day, the same departure time, the same tiny regional airport, to visit her. I found this out the hard way, standing in the security line, when I heard a voice behind me say, "Is that an inflatable item in your bag?" I turned around, and there she was. Reading glasses. Binder. A look on her face like she'd just spotted a code violation from 400 miles outside her jurisdiction. "It's a travel pillow," I said, already feeling my stomach drop. "I recognize an inflatable pattern when I see one," Deborah said. "That is the same rounded, plastic-adjacent silhouette that violated Willow Creek's aesthetic guidelines 3 weeks ago. Deborah, this is a neck pillow. For sleeping on the plane. Rules," she said, "do not stop applying just because you cross a county line." I genuinely laughed, thinking this was a joke. It was not a joke. By the time I'd pulled my pillow out of my carry-on for the security bin, Deborah had already flagged down a nearby TSA agent, holding up her laminated binder like it was a badge, insisting my pillow needed to be formally reviewed for compliance. The agent, to his credit, looked at her like she had just informed him the moon was made of soft cheese. "Ma'am, this is TSA. We don't do HOA reviews." "Then I would like to speak to a supervisor," Deborah said, "because this item clearly violates community standards, and if community standards mean anything, they should mean something everywhere." The line behind us groaned collectively, the universal sound of people who just wanted to get to their gate. Here's where the story gets stranger. After the pillow standoff, which ended with the TSA agent literally just waving me through while Deborah continued lecturing him about aesthetic contamination, I finally made it to my gate with 20 minutes to spare. I set my bag down, went to grab a coffee, came back, and noticed something odd. My travel pillow was gone. Not deflated. Not squished. Gone. Vanished from the outer pocket of my carry-on where I'd clipped it just minutes earlier. I assumed I'd misplaced it, so I dug through my whole bag. Nothing. I checked under the seats. Nothing. I even asked the gate agent if anyone had turned in a lost pillow. Nothing. It wasn't just the pillow, either. Over the next hour, waiting at the gate, other odd things started happening around me. My phone charger, which I'd left plugged into a charging station while I stepped away, disappeared. A woman 2 seats down mentioned her travel-sized neck pillow had also gone missing from her bag while she was in the restroom. Another passenger, an older man in a Hawaiian shirt, said his inflatable seat cushion, the kind people use for long flights, had vanished too. It felt too coincidental. Multiple soft, inflatable travel items disappearing in the same gate area, in the same hour, right after Deborah Hensley had made a scene about inflatable aesthetic violations. I didn't want to jump to conclusions. But I also couldn't shake the feeling that Deborah, who I noticed was sitting 3 rows away, suspiciously close to her own oversized tote bag which she was guarding like Gollum with the One Ring, had something to do with it. I decided to do a little digging, mostly because at this point I was equal parts annoyed and entertained, and partly because the Hawaiian shirt guy looked genuinely upset about his missing seat cushion and I wanted to help him get it back. Step 1. I quietly asked the gate agent if the airport had security cameras covering our gate area. She said yes, and while she couldn't personally pull footage for me, airport security could, especially since multiple people were now reporting missing items. Step 2. I struck up a casual conversation with the woman whose neck pillow had disappeared. Turns out she'd noticed the same thing I had. A woman matching Deborah's description had walked past her seat right before the pillow vanished, moving slower than someone just casually strolling, glancing down at bags along the way. Step 3. I texted my sister, who was already at our destination airport waiting for my flight, and asked her to look up whether aesthetic violation confiscation was even a real thing anywhere in the country. It is not. She sent back a laughing emoji and the words, "Please tell me this is really happening." Step 4, and this is the part that felt like something out of a heist movie, I noticed Deborah's tote bag had a very specific, very telling lump near the bottom. Round. Bulbous. The exact rounded U-shape of a travel neck pillow. I flagged down airport security, explained the situation, multiple passengers reporting missing inflatable travel items, a woman who had been aggressively confronting people about inflatable violations all morning, and a suspiciously lumpy tote bag sitting 3 rows away. The security officer, a calm woman named Officer Reyes who had clearly seen a lot of strange things in her career but was visibly trying not to laugh, agreed to come take a look. Officer Reyes approached Deborah with the practiced calm of someone who deals with airport chaos on a near-daily basis. "Ma'am, I'm going to need to check your bag. We've had multiple reports of missing personal items in this gate area." Deborah straightened up immediately, going full board meeting mode. "I am a homeowners association president. I do not steal. I confiscate unauthorized items in accordance with community standards." The entire gate area went dead silent. Even the boarding announcement seemed to pause for dramatic effect, though that was probably a coincidence. "Ma'am," Officer Reyes said slowly, "we're at an airport. Not a homeowners association. Standards," Deborah said, "do not stop applying just because you cross a county line." "Yes, I heard you say that already," I said, unable to help myself. Officer Reyes asked Deborah to open her tote bag. Deborah hesitated for just a second too long, which honestly told everyone in earshot everything they needed to know. When she finally unzipped it, out came, one by one, my inflatable travel pillow, the other woman's neck pillow, the man's inflatable seat cushion, and, this part got an audible gasp from the crowd, a phone charger that definitely was not hers, still coiled neatly like she'd taken the time to wrap it up properly before stashing it away. "These," Deborah said, holding her ground even as her face went slightly pink, "were all unauthorized inflatable and electronic items creating visual clutter in a shared community space." "This is a gate at an airport," Officer Reyes said. "There is no HOA here." "There should be," Deborah muttered, and honestly, out of everything she said that day, that might have been the most on-brand sentence of her entire life. By this point, the gate area had turned into a full audience. Nobody was even pretending to look at their phones anymore. Well, they were looking at their phones, but specifically to record what was happening. Boarding had been temporarily paused because Officer Reyes needed to sort out the situation, which meant Deborah now had a captive audience of roughly 60 increasingly amused strangers. "Ma'am," Officer Reyes said, holding up my pillow, "can you explain why you took this passenger's personal property?" "I did not take it," Deborah said. "I confiscated a visual violation." "There is no such thing as a visual violation in an airport," Officer Reyes replied, deadpan. "There should be community standards everywhere," Deborah said, her voice rising. "Do you have any idea what unregulated clutter does to shared spaces? To property values? To the general dignity of public areas?" Someone in the crowd, I never found out who, muttered, "Ma'am, we're going to Cleveland," which got a genuine laugh from at least 20 people. The man in the Hawaiian shirt stepped forward, arms crossed. "That's my seat cushion. I need that for my back. I have a herniated disc." "Then you should have secured it properly," Deborah said, which, even by her standards, was an incredible thing to say to a man with a legitimate medical condition, in public, while literally holding his stolen property. The woman whose neck pillow had also gone missing chimed in. "You took that out of my bag while I was in the bathroom. That's not confiscating. That's stealing." "I left a note," Deborah said. "You didn't leave a note," the woman said. "I intended to leave a note," Deborah clarified, and at this point half the gate area was openly laughing, phones held high, someone even doing a hushed play-by-play like a sports commentator. "This is your captain speaking. No wait, sorry, wrong announcement, but seriously, this HOA lady just got caught with a whole duffel bag of stolen pillows. We are witnessing history." Officer Reyes, maintaining impressive composure, calmly informed Deborah that theft, even when self-justified through what she called aesthetic enforcement, was still theft, and that airport security would be documenting the incident, returning all items to their rightful owners, and that Deborah would need to speak with airport police before being allowed to board. Deborah opened her mouth to argue further, looked around at the sea of unimpressed, phone-recording faces, and, for possibly the first time in the entire story, actually stopped talking. You'd think that would be the end of it. It was not. While Officer Reyes stepped away briefly to radio for an airport police escort, Deborah, apparently unwilling to accept defeat gracefully, turned her attention back to me with the fury of someone who had just lost a very public argument and desperately needed somewhere to redirect it. "This is retaliation," she announced, pointing directly at me. "You've clearly organized this entire thing to embarrass me because I've been holding your household accountable for community violations. Deborah, we're not even in the same state as our community right now. Jurisdiction," she said, "is a state of mind." I genuinely didn't know how to respond to that, so I just let her keep going, mostly because the crowd around us was thoroughly enjoying the show at this point. Deborah then pulled out her phone and, in front of everyone, announced that she would be documenting this incident for the next HOA newsletter, framing herself as the victim of what she called a coordinated smear campaign by non-compliant residents. She actually started dictating notes into her phone out loud. Note to self: additional bylaw needed regarding public disparagement of HOA leadership while traveling. She also threatened, rather dramatically, that my flamingo incident from 3 weeks earlier would now be escalated to a formal violation with monetary penalties, and that she'd be adding a new rule specifically banning inflatable items of any kind, in any location, associated with any resident, at any time. Which honestly sounds less like a bylaw and more like something a supervillain would monologue right before a submarine door closes behind them. The crowd, rather than being intimidated, mostly just laughed harder. Someone near the front actually applauded, slow and sarcastic, and a kid nearby asked his mom, "Is this lady in trouble?" To which his mom replied, "Buddy, you have no idea." Here's the part of the story that still makes me laugh every time I tell it. Airport police arrived a few minutes later, and after a short conversation with Officer Reyes and a quick review of the recovered items, all of which were returned to their rightful owners, my pillow included, fully reinflated and completely unharmed, Deborah was informed that because multiple passengers wanted to press the issue, and because airport theft is taken quite seriously regardless of the thief's confidence in their own bylaws, she would need to be interviewed further and would, as a direct result, be missing her flight. The exact flight she had spent the last hour insisting was somehow within her jurisdiction. As the gate agent called final boarding, Deborah stood there, binder in hand, tote bag confiscated as evidence, watching the rest of us line up to board while she was escorted toward the airport police office for further questioning. The final image I have of her, and I promise you, this is completely true, I have it on video, is Deborah standing at the very back of the now empty gate area, tote bag gone, binder clutched to her chest, being gently guided away by two airport officers, while the gate agent's voice echoed calmly overhead, "This is the final boarding call for the flight to Cleveland. All remaining passengers, please proceed to the gate." She did not make her flight. The rest of us did. I settled into my seat, fully inflated travel pillow tucked comfortably behind my neck, and genuinely could not stop smiling for the entire first hour of the flight. The Hawaiian shirt man, sitting a few rows up, gave me a thumbs up as he adjusted his rightfully returned seat cushion. The woman whose pillow had also been stolen ended up sitting 2 seats away from me, and we spent a good chunk of the flight just replaying the whole thing, laughing harder each time. Word travels fast, especially in a neighborhood with an unervingly active Facebook group. By the time I landed and turned my phone back on, I had 11 notifications from the Willow Creek Estates community page. Apparently someone on my flight, probably one of the 60 amused witnesses, had posted the video of Deborah's meltdown online, and it had made its way, screenshot by screenshot, straight back to our neighborhood group. The comments were, to put it mildly, a landslide. Carl, the former HOA president, commented simply, "This is why I stepped down." Some people cannot be given a laminated binder and unsupervised free time. Several neighbors who had previously been cited for things like unauthorized wind chime volume or insufficiently symmetrical porch furniture, came out of the woodwork to share their own Deborah stories, and honestly, reading through them felt like watching an entire community collectively exhale for the first time in months. The elderly couple next door, whose packages I'd been collecting, posted that they'd been quietly documenting Deborah's overreach for weeks and were relieved someone had finally captured it on camera in a way that couldn't be argued away. Within a week, an emergency HOA meeting was called, not by Deborah, but by 3 other board members who, it turned out, had been just as fed up with her escalating rule enforcement as everyone else. The flamingo incident, the pillow theft, the general reign of aggressive laminated binder terror, all came up. Deborah attempted to defend herself by explaining her jurisdiction is a state of mind philosophy to the emergency meeting, which did not land any better with actual neighbors than it had with airport security. She was voted out. Unanimously, except for her own vote, which I'm told she cast for herself, out loud, twice, just to make sure everyone heard it. Carl, somewhat reluctantly, agreed to step back in as interim president, on the single condition that nobody bring a ruler to my front door ever again. As for me, my flamingo violation was, of course, dropped entirely. I did, out of pure spite and a genuine sense of humor, buy a second flamingo. I put them both on the porch, side by side, wearing tiny sunglasses I ordered specifically for the occasion. Nobody has said a word about it since. Here's what I took away from the whole ridiculous ordeal, sitting on a plane with my rightfully returned travel pillow, laughing until my stomach hurt. Rules exist for a reason: safety, courtesy, keeping shared spaces functional and pleasant for everyone. But rules only work when the people enforcing them remember where their authority actually starts and ends. The moment someone starts treating their own preferences as universal law, chasing power for the sake of power rather than any real purpose, they stop protecting a community and start terrorizing it instead. Deborah wasn't defeated because someone outsmarted her with some brilliant scheme. She was defeated because she couldn't stop being herself, even in a place where her rules had absolutely no power at all. Confidence without boundaries just becomes a spectacle, and eventually, spectacles catch up with the people creating them. And maybe the real lesson is smaller than that, too. Sometimes the most satisfying justice isn't dramatic. It's just watching someone completely certain of their own authority miss their flight to Cleveland while a stranger's neck pillow flies home safely without her. So that's the story of how a laminated HOA binder, a stolen travel pillow, and a woman utterly convinced that jurisdiction was optional led to one of the most chaotic security lines I've ever stood in. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever run into an HOA president, or honestly, anyone, who thought their authority followed them absolutely everywhere, even somewhere it clearly didn't belong? Drop your story in the comments, because I guarantee some of you have tales that make Deborah's binder look tame. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this one, and as always, I'll see you in the next video.